Yeah, food and Ruché is a really fascinating story because I think this is, that grape variety, which nowadays, because, traditional, we talk all the time. But I think in this sense, this grape becoming very contemporary nowadays. Contemporary nowadays, not just for the young generation, not just for aperitif occasions, but also for all different kinds of cuisines in the world.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today it's my pleasure to travel to Piedmont and to the small wine comune of Castagnole Monferrato to meet my guest, Svetlana Melnichenko of the Montalbera Winery. Buongiorno, Svetlana. How are you today?
Buongiorno, Mark. I'm very well, thank you. We have a beautiful weather with the fog here in Piedmont.
Oh, the fog, the famous fog. Well, we have beautiful sunshine in England today, so that's actually unusual. Lately, it's been a very, very gray winter.
Yeah, also here.
Svetlana, we met last month in Torino at Grandi Langhe, which was a great wine occasion. And I had a chance then to learn about Montalbera and to taste your wonderful wines. And it made me want to know more about the story. So I'm glad we have this opportunity. But as we begin, first of all, I'd like you to describe where the estate is located, the Castagnole Monferrato area. We're in the Provincia di Asti, is that correct?
Yeah, is that correct? Montalbera is a very unique winery. It's a historical winery, family owned, three generations. And basically, our story started with the Langhe, with Castagnole Tinella area, which is the top area of Moscato d'Asti. And then the grandfather, he moved to Castagnole Monferrato, which is basically not so far away from Alba or from Langhe because it's just 40 minutes drive from Alba. It's 10 minutes drive from Asti. So basically, Castagnole Monferrato is a small village near Asti area.
Okay, so we're in the Monferrato wine hills.
Yeah, we're in
Okay.
the heart of Monferrato. Castagnole Monferrato is the name of the appellation, which is very rare. It's called Ruché di Castagnole Monferrato DOCG. It's one of the smallest DOCG in Italy. And this grape, Ruché, is one of the smallest gem Italian grapes. So basically, we're in the heart of this appellation here.
Okay, that's really fascinating. I'm looking forward to exploring this wonderful grape in our conversation. Now, can you tell us a little bit of the brief history of the Montalbera wine estate? It's unusual to have the vineyards all around the estate, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a beautiful winery because basically here you feel like back in time, really, in all the senses. Because here this estate is in fact is in between Montemagno and Grana, in Castagnole Monferrato, and here we are just surrounded of a big block of the vineyards. So basically, we are that historical winery who has started the unique grape, restarted unique grape bouquet. So we basically are surrounded with the sea of the vineyards, as our agronomists call them. The sea of the vineyards are okay because 60% of the whole appellation in terms of the vineyard area belongs to us. And then we have a Barbera here, Barbera d'Asti. Then we have Grignolino, hope to talk about Grignolino as well. We have Nebbiolo. So we have all the indigenous grapes allowed to be cultivated in this area here. And around the estate, we have 115 hectares. So it's a really fascinating area because all the vineyards are all around and in one block vineyards. So it's really unique.
Okay, that is really, really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to diving more deeply into these native grape varieties. Tell us about the family then and about, the story of Montalbera.
Yeah. The story of Montalbera goes back to the 80s. Basically, we start with our grandfather, Enrico Morando. He was the man who was born in Castagnole Tinella. Castagnole Tinella is a historical area of the cultivation of another historical grape, Moscato d'Asti. And of course, at that time, Moscato was one of the most popular grapes, most consumed grapes, right? So we still have the estate also in that area, and we have also 10 hectares in that area. And his family always cultivated the grapes of Moscato. So basically, he started from that, and then he moved by chance, really by chance. But in the history, it's always incredible coincidences. By chance to Castagnole Monferrato, which is not so far, but at that time had nothing to do with his real intention. So basically, he was wondering which kind of business and which kind of investment he could do also with maybe some other activity. He met by chance the mayor of this town, small village, Castagnole Monferrato, and he was recommended to meet also the priest of this village, Don Cauda. He was the one who restarted, because Ruché is the grape dating from the 12th century, but this grape was kind of abandoned, forgotten. There are different legends about this grape. Also, some of them connecting this grape variety with France, with French malts, or there are some other different versions of origin of this grape variety. But what we know as an actual story is that this grape was rediscovered by this priest from the village. That's why the whole appellation then was devoted to him. And he was the one who was looking for the people who could cultivate this grape, I would say, in an artisanal way. Because, of course, he was the one who started vinifying and making the wine, but just for his own needs. So he wanted to introduce this grape further to the market. So by chance, they met each other. He let him taste this fascinating grape, which is semi-aromatic grape variety. And since in a way it's a little bit similar to Moscato, I mean, because it's semi-aromatic, right? It's red, but it's semi-aromatic. So the grandfather, he really fell in love with this grape variety. And he fell in love in such a way that he decided to devote his life to this cultivation of this grape. So in such a way, he bought a small factory, which was also elevating some animals, so making some grape wine, and we started cultivating. So by that time, the real actual history of the family winemaking in here in Castagnole Monferrato begins. We have old video in black and white telling the story, like he himself is telling the story, saying that the priest made me taste the wine. I tasted the wine. I liked it so much. And then he said, okay, I said to myself, this will become the wine of the future. This is crazy because at that time, even the DOC appellation didn't exist, because Ruquet then got the DOC appellation in 87, and in 2010 it was granted the DOCG status. But at that time when they were talking, so they were talking about the grape which existed just in a few rows. So basically not the wine, not the grape, not the appellations didn't exist. So they both believed in this grape. They call this wine of the wine of the future, which is crazy thinking about that time when people basically were thinking about the other ways, right? Because that time Piemonte was not what is Piemonte right now. It was quite a poor region. So people were really cultivating the grapes just for their own consumption needs, not for the market. So it was a completely different time. Yes.
Oh, it's a beautiful story, Svetlana. And, this is what I love about Italian wines and about Italy, that, a grape variety that is still mainly unknown to most wine drinkers. I think you would agree, because it's produced in such tiny quantity. A grape like Ruché, which has such wonderful potential and individuality, and unlike anything else one can taste. That variety was saved through the efforts, as your story recounts, so that it can be enjoyed today. And, something that you only almost need to seek out and discover. And I hope our listeners will be inspired to seek out this wonderful wine. Let's talk about Ruché in more detail. Let's talk about the origins of the grape variety and what it has to offer, as well as your two different expressions that I had a chance to taste.
Yeah, in fact, the origins of this grape go back to what we could discover, go back to the 12th century. So it's really one of the Asian grape varieties. Then, of course, they seem to be forgotten. So there are different versions about their origins. So in any case, they're all connected with the community of monks, or whether they're coming from different areas, but they're saying about the community of monks, which was devoted to Saint Roch, who introduced the cultivation in the area. This grape variety has nothing to do with any other grape variety that we can see, not with Barbera, not with Granulino, not with Nebbiolo. So it's so unique because it's semi-aromatic, but then it's dry on the palate. It's completely different from any other grape variety. Basically, we as a winery, since we started our history back in time, right, we always, because at that time, when they started making this wine, the wine was really different, of course, because the climate was different as well. And it was a table wine, like many other wines was there. Nowadays, we have an appellation. We have Ruché di Castagnole Monferrato DOCG, which is really tiny gem because the whole appellation is making less than 1 million bottle. It's impossible even compare with Barolo or even with Barbaresco. And this grape can be cultivated. So, Monferrato is really big in terms of the territory. In fact, Barbera d'Asti can be cultivated in many communes, but Ruché can be cultivated just in 7 villages. So it's really restricted area of cultivation of Rukia. And that's why for us it's kind of easy to work with this grape because since we are kind of pioneering winery for this grape, we have a vineyard area of 66 hectares. This allows us to make this grape really in different styles. In fact, what we tasted with in Grandi Langhe was a few different, version styles of Ruquet. Basically, what we did with our heritage of the vineyards, thanks to agronomical techniques, because we have a very good agronomist, Roberto Abate, and thanks to our winemaker, Nino Falcone, and thanks to the family who always believed in and knows this grape very well, right? Now we are already on the third generation. We basically, what we did with our vineyards, we divided them in different zone areas. It's not about the crew, it's just knowing very well your terroir. And really, in fact, when I talk about this grape, I don't talk about this, grape as a cellar wine, technical wine. This is really a terroir wine in all the senses because, for example, two versions of Rupier that we make, which are mostly famous in the market, present in the markets, different markets, they are called La Tradizione and L'Accento. So, of course, the one which is more known is L'Accento, but both of them, they're made with no oak stainless steel. The difference in them is about the terroir. So in the terroir, we are looking for complexity on the wine without making the wine too complicated. We are looking for elegance. We are looking for finesse of the wine. We don't want to care to be in line with Barbera, to be in line with Nebbiolo, because Ruquet is a completely different grape. It's semi-aromatic on the one hand, right, on the nose, but then it's dry and silky, silky tannins on the palate. So it's so delicate, so fresh. This is the grape which can be also enjoyed in summer or with some different food pairings that we try to make this grape, being really close to Burgundy style wines, not to, like we make Barbera. So we really try to treat this grape as a fine wine, as a small gem. And so our two major versions are La Tradizione and L'Accento, which is the representation of this elegance and complexity on the other hand. Especially L'Accento. Maybe I can give more words to him.
Is Accento the Riserva that I
No,
tasted?
Riserva is another story. Riserva
Okay.
is something new in the appellation because Riserva entered in the appellation in 2019 officially. It's quite a recent story in Ruquet.
Okay.
Act Ruquet originally was no oak, so it's also quite unusual, right, for Piedmont wines. But this is about the grape itself. So beauty about graceful, really graceful and delicate grape. So when we talk about Lacento, is a unique recipe because this recipe belongs to the history of the family and all the heritage of the vineyards that we have. Basically, it's a blend of different terroirs that we have, different altitudes, different expositions. And also there is one more thing that we use in Lacento, which is double harvest. This is something that helps to give this wine more complexity, without making it heavy or without going to harsh tannins. So 80% of the grapes, they are harvested in optimum conditions, and 20% of the grapes will make slight over ripening directly in the vineyard. So kind of late harvest. This helps, like Ruché is really fascinating grape. When people start scenting this grape, they feel different aromas, really, starting from rose, going to small berries, going to pomegranate, and spices character as well, like rose pepper, something. So it's really fascinating. When you create the blend, which is giving you this complexity in the nose and also in the palate, so really you remain impressed because at the end, this is what is helping you, right, to drink this wine in an easy way without getting big efforts to this. And any person can like this grape because it's really elegant. It's really fresh and elegant. And you know what I also like about this wine nowadays, despite all the change in climate, because also you see in Piemonte we have like warm climate, rather hot. This grape doesn't lose its characteristics. So it's given better for the semi-aromatic grape variety like this. You have really more and more and more flavors and even more evolution in some of the vintages, which helps you to get the balance of this wine right now. So basically, this is nice for especially food pairing, right?
Yes, and we'll talk about that in a minute, Svetlana. But I just want to impress upon our listeners what a unique wine Ruké is. I was so impressed when I tasted with you, Svetlana. As you say, it's a semi-aromatic red, and so these pronounced aromas of as you say, flowers, roses, violets, but also this touch of spice and a juicy spiciness with tannins that were very, very silky. I thought it was fascinating to have an aromatic wine that was also a dry, powerful wine to enjoy with food. And as I say, we'll return to food pairings because I think it has some very interesting possibilities. I really fell in love with Ruké and would just urge our listeners, if you have an opportunity to taste Ruké from Montalbera or from other producers, it's so unusual that you must try it, and I hope listeners will enjoy it as much as I did. Is there anything else to add about Ruché before we turn to another special grape variety of the Grignolino?
Yes, I mean, first of all, a few words about the Riserva. Riserva basically is something new in the appellation. Here we use a different way, so it's kind of Luca Dardini called this wine Ruché with international touch because, of course, evolution in the oak, aging in oak is changing many grape characteristics. So for us, still the benchmark of Ruché is L'Accento or La Tradizione, the wines with no oak. But of course, we also make the Riserva, but Riserva is all different thing. Is a single vineyard, is the one that we are aging in large barrel, Austrian cask like in Barolo. So we use completely different way to vinify, to make the wine because we need to preserve high acidity because Ruché is not very high in acidity, but it has very silky tannins, which is very pleasant because they're never aggressive, but they are giving you the body structure in the palate, especially with the food. In fact, I wanted to dedicate a few words to food pairing of Ruché because for me it's a very nice story.
Yes, let's talk about food and Ruché.
Yeah, food and Ruché is a really fascinating story because I think this is, that grape variety, which nowadays, because, traditional, we talk all the time. But I think in this sense, this grape becoming very contemporary nowadays. Contemporary nowadays, not just for the young generation, not just for aperitif occasions, but also for all different kinds of cuisines in the world. In fact, me, I'm happy that traveling all different countries, traveling both to US market and both to Asian market, I can discover how this grape really fascinating with different food occasions. Because of course, being a red variety, it's nice with all the traditional grape food pairings like tajarin with ragu, with red meat. But what I find astonishing, the capacity of this grape to be adapted to all different type of another type of the food that we don't really have it here. In fact, now I'm back from Sweden. We had a pairing it with salmon or tuna, like red fish, and it's nice because this grape is very fresh. So, like leveraging the southern temperature, you can really pair it with rice, with fish, with chicken, really with so different types of cuisine. So it's nice with Chinese because of its spicy character. It's good with spicy food because it cleans you the palate also with the spicy food. So it's becoming really versatile and really fascinating contemporary grape when it comes to different types of food. Especially, that light red that you can really use in different versions. You can chill it, you can serve it in ambient temperature. So it's up to you how to manage it according to what type of food you have. So this is something which even me, I'm discovering like day per day because it's nice to see how this grape is adapting to all different types of food.
That's really fascinating, Svetlana. And I think it's really intriguing that we have this ancient grape variety documented in the 12th century that can be very modern and for today's palate. I thought that it was very much a gastronomic wine. And I know we discussed different pairings, and I remember thinking that this with an Asian style duck would be a magnificent pairing.
Yeah, it's true because this grape is always goes gently with the food, never covers the food, and that's why it's so nice to rediscover it in different occasions in different versions.
Yes, that's right, because it's semi aromatic and it's not overblown in its aromas. It's delicate. The flowers are really delicate and the flavors really are complex. Svetlana, let's turn to another special grape variety, again, a rarity that our listeners may not have tasted. They may have tasted, but I think it's a wonderful grape variety from your area that's important to Montalbera as well, the Grignolino.
Grignolino is another grape that I think is living quite a difficult history right now. So that's why probably thanks to us, I mean, to you, to me, to the listeners, hopefully this grape will not be forgotten because this grape always lived between ups and downs. It's one of the really Asian grape varieties, and it's not by chance that this grape variety was called the one, we often hear wine for the kings, right? Barolo and everything. But this grape Grignolino was actual wine for the kings at that time, was the wine for noble people, right? For the court. So because they were drinking this wine on a regular level, right? So this grape comes also back to the 12th century, so it has very ancient roots. And unfortunately, nowadays, the surface area of this grape variety and also the appellations is slightly disappear, just because of, in a way, our low culture for this grape variety. So that's why our winery, nevertheless, the trends or not trends, Nebbiolo, Barbera, whatever, we really believe and try to not just invest, but try to, I mean, tell the story of this grape variety, bring this grape variety both to the traditional way of making, but also to a new way of making. So this grape variety was even sometimes it's called even Rosé Nebbiolo because by color it's really like transparent, like light color, like Nebbiolo, and a tannin grape. It has the tannins, it has acidity. It can be cultivated in this area of between Asti and Casale. In fact, there are two appellations, Casale Monferrato and also Grignolino d'Asti. Here we are in the area of Grignolino d'Asti. So what we try to do, we try to renew the history of this grape variety and renew this grape variety, also bring to life, this grape variety, which is nowadays, of course, not used as the wine well so known as it was in the past.
No, it's a grape. You're right. It's not well known, but it's such a fascinating grape. This light color, very, very light color. And yet it's a wine with body and structure, with tannins that can be surprising in the mouth when one tastes Grignolino for the first time. I love it, and I don't have a chance to taste it often enough. So, Don, I'm just wondering, I've got a question for you in your role as senior export manager for these wonderful wines. Do you think that today one of the great strengths of Italian wine and wine drinkers around the world are seeking new flavors, are seeking wines they haven't heard of? The world became limited in a way with lesser and lesser numbers of varieties of grapes. It became almost brands, international varieties. And Italy has such a wealth of unknown grape varieties that produce such great wines that are waiting to be discovered. Does that make it easier for you to sell these wines, or at the same time, does it make it harder because people haven't tasted them?
I see in both directions. I see, yes, on the one hand, it's difficult because on the one hand, we are talking about small appellations right now, in even Gridulino. On the other hand, I see many opportunities nowadays because if we don't follow the trends, right? Trends, I mean, in terms of big appellations, big brands, and if we really want to know the wine as a grape culture, right? A wine as a terroir wine. These grape varieties can be so contemporary, is so interesting, and don't give your kind of vision in a limited way and enlarge your wine culture because really Piemonte is often limited nowadays in markets to only Nebbiolo and Barbera grape, which is really very limited version of Piemonte. Because in fact, we have both the territories, but also these fascinating grapes, which need to be given new life. And I see these grapes in the new life because, for example, nowadays the same Grignolino d'Asti, right? The one that we make in stainless steel is completely different which what was before. Because nowadays the tannins, which in the past just the local people could drink because they were really harsh, and Grignolino is not the grape which is aged in oak normally. So really in that context, Grignolino nowadays with less tannins, more sapidity, nice balance in the alcohol, so not high in alcohol, so really fresh and nice flavors. It really gives you the beautiful perception. In fact, it's just a matter, to let the market discover this wine because we often talk to young people that are not drinking the wines, but sometimes they don't know the grapes. They want the wines. What I see traveling, especially on the, B2C tastings, well, with the consumer tasting, trying to let them taste this wine. For example, Grignolino d'Asti, we've given a new life. Montalbera, almost the biggest market for us is Canada, Quebec, because we are present in this market for so many years. People know our Grignolino, our style, and they enjoy it. They enjoy Nebbiolos as well, but they enjoy Grignolino because it's different, because it gives you what Nebbiolo or the other grapes cannot give to you. So this freshness, these beautiful aromas, this nice, delicate tannins. And for example, we have another version of Grignolino made in amphora, which is our new way to make it. So we started making Grignolino in amphora in 2016.
I tasted this with you, Svetlana. I was so impressed with this wine.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't want to dedicate to this the whole tasting, but in Grana Langhe because there were many different grapes varieties. But then at the end, Grignolino and Amphora was really right a discovery. And this is, the version of Grignolino, but made in completely new way. because amphora was not used for winemaking in Piemonte. And the other grape varieties are not so well with Grignolino like amphora. In such a way, we give more aroundness to the tannins because in the amphora is not covering you the beauty of the nose of Grignolino, but it gives you more structure and also gives you the tannins and longevity of this wine. So you, for example, for me, a nice market for amphora is a Swedish market because they rediscovered. But it's a matter of them and us and you to let people discover this grape and then they enjoy it because it really this versions of Grignolino and Ruché are so versatile and can be used in different occasions with different serving temperatures and different food versions. Even I can tell you also one more fact about Grignolino. We are making Grignolino also in sparkling way. This is also something completely new for Grignolino. We make Grignolino vinified it's Charmat Rosé and brut version. And Grignolino is so nice because it has such a beautiful nose, such a long, persistent, and nice perlage. So it becomes really gastronomical. But it's again, it's our way to give the new life to Grignolino and to bring both different markets, different cultures, but also different ages, right? The young people also to drink such ancient old varieties.
Well, that's really, really interesting, Svetlana. And I remember my good friend Cynthia Chaplin, who introduced us, actually talked to me and told me how much she loves the sparkling Grignolino. She's an expert on the Rosato wines of Italy, and I know that's a particular favorite of hers. I love as well how you're really bringing these ancient and still unknown grape varieties into a contemporary setting, that these are wines that are not from the past, they're wines for today. And that's very important. So I really hope our listeners will be inspired to try these wines. Now, the best way, of course, Svetlana, would be to visit the area. It's not easy to gain an understanding. We can taste the wines and we need to taste them outside of the context of the area. But to get that full understanding, I think visiting is very important. Can our listeners visit Montalbera?
Yes, of course. Our winery is open 7 days to 7. When you get to this area, this is also UNESCO heritage area for food and winemaking like Barolo, right? But when you get to this area, you really understand what the true Piedmont is because you will see no cars, no tourists, just vineyards. So in this area, we have mostly European kind of tourism right now. And this area is still not so known like Barolo, right? So you have really high quality tourism area in this because you can eat really local food, what people eat. You can taste the wines which local people drink on a regular level every day because both the grape varieties, Ruché and Grignolino, they are the wines consumed every day wine, not just, special occasion wine or meditation wine. No, they're not meditation wine. Wine for comfort food, wine for everyday occasion. And we have also 4 wine suits. So your listeners can also enjoy, imagine, in the vineyards of Ruché, in the vineyards of Grignolino, in the vineyards of Barbera, in the vineyards of Nebbiolo, and they can enjoy this beautiful view. And because we have hills here, because these grapes are grown on the hills. And it's really so quiet and so peaceful here. So you forget about all the stress of the city and you just enjoy and, really indulge in the area of food and wine.
Well, it sounds absolutely idyllic, and also this chance to really experience the real Piedmont countryside away from the crowds and enjoying, as you say, the local foods. What would be the local dishes that everybody should sample if they're in your area? Just a few.
Yes, of course, when you are in high season and in high season of white truffle, right? And here we still have the forests, we have grape, we have a nice white truffle of Alba. So here you can really enjoy the tajarin, like pasta with white truffle, homely made. And Ruché, for example, in that occasion is one of the best and classical food pairing. In fact, Ruché is the wine that is ambassador for the dishes with white truffle, of course.
What would be the dish to have with grignolino, the traditional dish?
I was Grignolino, for me, this is the wine not to make it too complicated. So, like when you have aperitif here, you start like you have, like our Piedmont appetizers, like vitello tonato or raw meat, a carne cruda. So Grignolino is one of the best with all the our local cold appetizers because it's so fresh, nice tannins, smooth, and also this saltiness on the palate. So it goes well also with cold cuts, salami, and now our winery will also offer like when we make a taste in local. Ham and local cheese because also cheese is very nice with both of them with Grignolino and with Roquette.
Okay, and actually, there's some great cheeses from Le Langhe and from Piedmont
Yeah.
that do pair so well with the wines. Well, Svetlana, I just want to thank you for being our guest today. It's been wonderful to meet up again and to continue our conversation about these very distinctive and less well known grape varieties, Ruché and Grignolino. And I really hope that this encourages Italian Wine Podcast listeners to continue their exploration of the wealth of flavors that Italian wines can offer uniquely. And these are two great examples. I'm very impressed with the wines of Montalbera. So thank you very much for being our guest today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast, to giving me the opportunity to present these old but new, great varieties, unique great varieties, and then encourage every customer, every person, every wine lover not to limit yourselves to just one wine, one grape, and to really discover the beauty of Italian indigenous grape varieties, which is our history and which is our heritage here. So, in such a way, you will really enjoy what Italian wine is.
That's absolutely wonderful advice that I wholeheartedly agree with. So thank you, Svetlana, and I look forward to seeing you again soon, perhaps at Vinitaly.
Yes, yes, with big pleasure. I invite you to Vinitaly. We will be in Vinitaly and also here in Piemonte, in Monferrato.
Yes, that would even be better. I would love to visit, and I'll try to do this whenever I can, as soon as possible. So thank you, Svetlana. Buon lavoro, and see you soon.
Grazie mille. Buona giornata. Thank you
Buona
so much.
giornata. Thanks. We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.